Hello, I'm back. Well, my voice is anyway. So, if you've read the descriptions of my videos, you'll know that I had a bout of COVID, and as of the sort of weekend before this video's going out, I was negative. But you can still hear. I've still got a bit of throat congestion, but this is a test just to see, because I've got hopefully some videos I'm going to do or record coming up soon for release next week. So I just want to test my voice out, do a bit of a chatty video. I'm going to be chatting around 1980 debut albums as the theme, but I'm going to go off on various tangents, and it will be a good test for my voice. I hope you've been enjoying the silent videos. They've been actually fun to make. It's interesting, as you know. I just love opening those repacks, and it was great. I don't know when I stumbled across those again. They've been hard to get hold of, and I managed to find a few at a local Dollarama. I'd been hunting around about 2 or 3 Dollaramas locally, because there's quite a few around where I live. And finally, I think about a month ago, I found some, bought 6 of them, so I'm slow rolling them. And this was a golden opportunity to do that. It's strange. Someone's commented already, and you'll notice in the pack that I just uploaded before I recorded this video. We've now had 3 packs with the same rare in it, in all 3. I don't think I've ever seen that. I've seen uncommons, like the same uncommon across multiple packs, but I think it's the first time I've seen the same rare. And also the interesting first pack we got, to have 2 rares in there, although the rarity's a bit weird. The second pack had a load of uncommons, and the pack I've just released had a load of old border cards. So yeah, it made me smile. Hopefully it made you all smile. So yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. I did actually lose, for those that are interested and want to sort of compare symptoms, I did actually lose my sense of smell, and as a consequence my sense of taste, for about 3 days. Just went completely, and then it slowly came back. So I was planning out my strategy, should it persist, in terms of what I might try to kick my smell and taste back into action. But fortunately I didn't have to resort to anything too drastic. So yeah, that was rather interesting, to say the least. Anyway, I was out this morning, because I don't know if this has ever come up on my videos, but I go out. I'm pretty active every day, so 6 days a week I do at least 2 hours walking, normally split into 1 hour chunks, sometimes into like 3 chunks, but generally 2 1 hour chunks. And I do a few other exercises as well. So obviously, me being super cautious and rather risk averse, I dialed everything back. I dialed all the exercises back. So this was the first time I'd been out on a decentish walk this morning. Not an hour, but beyond about 5 minutes. And it was nice to get out and wander around. And while I'm wandering around, my thoughts turned to what I was listening to, and I was listening to the debut Angel Witch album, because I'd gone on a bit of a doom metal jag over the weekend, and I was listening to Early Sabbath, like the first 6 albums, and I was working my way through a Terrorizer special they did on doom metal, and they had like 50 albums in historical order, starting off with Sabbath. I think they had about the first 5 albums in it, and then the next album they had was the Angel Witch debut album. So I was listening to that, and as I'm going around listening to it, thinking, oh, this is a super cool album. I thought about when it came out, which was 1980. And I thought, there's loads of really classic debut albums came out in 1980. I mean, there's loads of brilliant albums from 1980, but there's loads of debut albums. And I thought I could easily just come up with a top 5 off the top of my head. So that's what I did. And this is the top 5 I came up with. At the end of the video, we'll jump into Wikipedia and we'll get a feel generally for what was coming out in 1980 beyond just debut albums. So again, we're pretty granular with these top 5s, but that's part of the fun, is to make it granular enough so I can do these off the top of my head. So what did I come up with? And these are in roughly release order. So first on my list here would be Iron Maiden by Iron Maiden. So this came out in April 2018. It's the only studio album they did that actually features Dennis Stratton on it. So the lineup at the time was Paul Di'Anno, Steve Harris, Dave Murray, Dennis Stratton, Clive Burr. Dennis Stratton left the band after this album, and then for Killers, obviously there was a new lineup. This album's got stuff like Prowler on it, Remember Tomorrow, Running Free, Phantom of the Opera, Transylvania, Strange World, Charlotte the Harlot and Iron Maiden. And there's that great thing, if you've got the vinyl version of this, which I have, where it gets to the final track and there's that bit at the end where they've actually looped it in the last bit of the vinyl, whatever you call it, the close-off loop that goes round on itself and just keeps repeating itself over and over again. It's pretty cool. So there were 2 singles off of this. It was Running Free and Sanctuary from here. But when I used to listen back to the Friday Rock Show back then, Iron Maiden was being played a lot, and they'd done a number of sessions as well around that time. And I think I might have mentioned either in one of my podcasts or another video where there's a really cool Reading Festival appearance that was done, I believe, between the release of this album and the release of Killers, where there's a version of Killers with different lyrics in it. And that live thing was broadcast on the Friday Rock Show, but you can also get hold of it. I got hold of it through that Iron Maiden metal box they did with the B-sides in it and all the rarities, and as part of that it had a couple of live gigs, and one of them was that Reading Festival gig. So years later I got to hear that version, because my one I taped off the radio had been long mangled by then, unfortunately. So next up we have Dead Kennedys, and this one, when it came out, I don't remember. I'm just trying to remember whether I bought this, how long after I actually had my own copy of it. I had friends that at the time that were big into the Dead Kennedys, and also one other band that I'm going to mention here. So I would have heard this when I'd gone round to their house to hang out. I had a friend that had a particularly impressive record collection, which I'm rather unsure about how he managed to acquire it at the time, and had just like the diversity of the albums in it was just unreal, and I believe this was in there as well. So yeah, this is Dead Kennedy's debut album, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. So there were 3 singles off of this: California Ballets, Holiday in Cambodia, Kill the Poor. This came out in September, was it 1980? And lineup wise, you've got Jello Biafra, East Bay Ray, Klaus Fluoride, and Ted on drums. There was the numerically named 6025 played rhythm guitar on Ill in the Head, which 6025 is Carlos Cadona, and he was their second guitarist from, was it 1978 to 79, sometime in that period. There's a few other people appearing on the album, like additional performers in terms of backing vocals and keyboards as well. But the core at that time of the Dead Kennedys was Biafra, East Bay Ray, Klaus Fluoride, and Ted on drums. I just rattle off the tracks on here. So you've got Kill the Poor, Forward to Death, When You Get Drafted, Let's Lynch the Landlord, Drug Me, Your Emotions, Chemical Warfare, California Ballets, I Kill Children. Oh dear, some of the stuff on here. Stealing People's Mail, Funland at the Beach, Ill in the Head, Holiday in Cambodia, and Viva Las Vegas, which was an Elvis Presley cover. Moving on. So next up we have Ozzy Osbourne with Blizzard of Oz. So this was his debut album after he left Sabbath. So this came out September 1980 in the UK. It didn't come out till March 81 in the US apparently. And the 2 singles off here, Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley. So original lineup for this: Ozzy on vocals, obviously, Randy Rhoads guitars, Bob Daisley, Lee Kerslake, and Don Airey played on this. And of course there's a whole bundle of controversy around this album, in not only in terms of a whole court case that they got involved with reference to the I'm trying to think about the whole. These were separate court cases at the time, but this one revolved around Suicide Solution. There was another similar one that Judas Priest got embroiled in as well, from an earlier album. So there was a whole period in particularly metal, but other music as well, that I suppose to some degree coincide with the whole appearance of the those stickers on record albums. So there was this like perfect storm at the time of, you know, bands or people attempting to sue bands for the death of family members, or just generally politicians who were on like a, you know, what they thought was some sort of bizarre moral crusade, trying to prevent the release of all manner of artists. And there was also quite a famous thing going on where Dee Snider from Twisted Sister was gave evidence at some sort of committee. So yeah, historically there's a whole ton of stuff that was going on off of the back of this and many other albums that, you know, came to the fore, you know, after this album was released, but sometime in the 80s. Also, there was some controversy about unpaid royalties surrounding the recording of the album, and that whole unpleasantness around the reissues of this, having the tracks re-recorded and then the kickback from that. So yeah, messy album legally. So what have we got on here? So we got I Don't Know, Crazy Train, Goodbye to Romance, D, Suicide Solution, Mr. Crowley, No Bone Movies, Revelation, Mother Earth, and Steal Away the Night. Obviously on reissues there's been additional tracks that have been added in as well. So debut album by Killing Joke, October of 1980. Eight tracks on the original album: Requiem, War Dance, Tomorrow's World, Bloodsport, The Weight, Complications, SO36 and Primitive. Line-up at that time, so we've got the original line-up: Jazz Coleman, Geordie on guitars, Youth on bass, and Paul Ferguson on drums. Two singles off of this: War Dance and Requiem. So Angel Witch by Angel Witch. End of the year, this one, December 1980. This was the one I was listening to this morning. 10 tracks on this: Angel Witch, Atlantis, White Witch, Confused, Sorcerers, Gorgon, Sweet Danger, Free Man, Angel of Death, Devil's Tower. From memory, was it Sweet Danger that was released as a single? I think that's right. They'd had singles prior to this album, but I think at the time, I think Sweet Danger was the A-side to the single. I don't think there were any other singles. I may be actually thinking about that. Perhaps Angel Witch was released as a single as well from that. It's interesting because at the time there was a lot of other stuff swimming around, like they recorded the track Baphomet for the Metal for Mothers EP, and I'd heard a lot of there's a Friday Rock Show session where they had the track Extermination Day, which isn't on this album, and that's really how I got into the band, was through that session on the BBC. And at the time, anything I really bought, because after this, I suppose you could say the band fell apart. There was a slight change in the lineup, and then everything just went south after that. But I bought was it the Loser EP, I think it was called, which had Loser, Suffer and Dr. Phibes, which is an instrumental. At the time, the personnel for this was Kevin Hayborn on guitars, lead vocals, Kevin Riddle's bass, keyboards and backing vocals, Dave Hogg on drums. After they recorded this album, Dave Hogg left and was replaced by think it was Dennis Dufort, who was Denise's Dufort's, as it was his brother. So Denise Dufort was the drummer from Girls' School. So what have we got on here? Angel Witch, Atlantis, White Witch, Confused, Sorceress, Gorgon, Sweet Danger, Free Man, Angel of Death. That track used to give me the creeps. And Devil's Tower, which is an instrumental. Fantastic album. Just the riffs on this are amazing. Just the amount of stuff. Yeah. Just fantastic albums. If you haven't listened to it, and check it out. Like classic Nwibum album. Actually, of course, Girls' School's Demolition came out in 1980 as well. So it's funny, after I went online and started to, research further, there was loads of stuff that I could have included on here. So I'm going to just drag in the Wikipedia article for that year in music, because I think it's great to look at this, because you see how, just from, not only from debut albums obviously, but just the stuff that came out in 1980. Where are we? So you can see here, just if I scroll slowly through here, obviously a lot of these aren't debut albums, but yeah, both some really cool debut albums. Return of the Dirty Column, She Agreed by Girl, that was a debut. But then a whole load of other stuff by, well-established acts, as you saw there. You've got Wishbone Ash Just Testing, Permanent Waves by Rush, No Place to Run. This was a debut album as well by John Foxx. Yeah, that was after he left Ultravox. I was trying to think when Abominog came out, so it must have been a little time after this. That was a heavy album. Abominog. Yeah, so you can see... Oh, first psychedelic album. Wow. There's just so much stuff that maybe I should have done a top 10. And then other stuff like Animal Magnetism came out that year. There was that Joe Perry Project album, Let the Music Do the Talking. I'm not sure. Had he left Aerosmith by then? I'm not sure. Another one, not a debut album, of course, British Steel came out that year. Was that the year that Saxon had 2 albums out? Not sure. Oh, there's a live Magnum album, Marauder. Oh, Bad Reputation by Joan Jett, Unmasked by Kiss. Oh, there you go. Yeah, so this was the year Saxon put out 2 albums. They had Wheels of Steel out earlier on in the year, and we'll see in a moment, we got Strong Arm of the Law came out. I completely had forgotten things like how old this album is, like debut album by The Cramps, Songs the Lord Taught Us. I actually saw them live in the mid-80s. And that was pretty impressive. Watching, what was the name of the singer? Was it Lux Interior? Yeah, that was in Brighton. He climbed to the top of the PA stack, and he was just absolutely out of his head. Oh, and he'd been drinking like bottles of wine during the gig, and yeah, he was. I thought at one point he was going to fall off the top of the PA. Actually, just so much good stuff here. Uprising. That was their second album, except I saw them in, I think, 81 or 82, supporting Judas Priest. Yeah, so debut album by Demolition. Queen were up to the game by then, in 1980. Of course, Tomcatting by Blackfoot, that was there on their 4th album by then. Vienna by Ultravox was out that year. Just fantastic year. And of course, not a debut, so that's why it wasn't on the list. But yeah, Back in Black was out. This is a band I really liked, Black Uhura. I didn't get into them around this time. This album was a bit later, around the time of tracks like Botanical Roots, that sort of thing. Oh, another one that's not a debut album but a fantastic album. This is Kaleidoscope. This was just when they were getting their act together after the departure of John Mackay and Kenny Morris, and John McGeoch joined the band. Someone who you know I'm a big fan of. Oh god, look, yeah, debut. Wow. Yeah, could he easily have made that a top 10, no problem at all. Never Forever by Kate Bush. I don't know if that one, did that have, what did that have in it? It just had Babushka on it. Oh, it did have, oh, and Actually Breathing. Simple Minds were kicking around. They were on their 3rd album by 1980. And of course we had Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. Just, yeah, phenomenal year for music. The Skids released Absolute Game, but this was their 3rd album, so obviously that wouldn't, if that had been their debut, then that probably would have, I would have been, had a bit of a dilemma about including that or not. Oh, of course, Lightning to the Nations. Wow. Yeah, this was my middle brother's favourite band, Zenyatta Mondatta. I can remember him buying that when it came out. Specials from their 2nd album. Wow, Remaining Light. Look at this. Makes you want to go on a Spotify freak out, doesn't it? Oh yeah, Gentlemen Take Polaroids. They were pretty far in by this time. 4th album. Interesting band to listen to if you want to listen to a band that really evolve from being like a glam band almost. Yeah, like a glam rock band from their 1st album. Like evolve over time into this pretty much 100% electronic band by the time of, I think it was Tin Drum. So yeah, definitely a good band to spend some time just listening. They didn't have many albums out. I think 4 or 5. But yeah, interesting to listen to over the course of their albums. What was Joe Jackson up to? 3rd album, Beat Crazy. Levitation by Hawkwind. Oh, this is one of my dad's favourite albums, QE2 by Mike Oldfield. Visage album, another John McGeoch connection there. What was Rod Stewart up to? Finished Behaviour. Yeah, I'm a big fan of early Rod Stewart. Oh, the Toy Alive album. Kings of the Wild Frontier. That was the 2nd album, of course. They had their debut album came out before 1980. And then what closed off the year, we were up to Sandinista. That was their 4th album. That was a triple album, wasn't it? And Queen had 2 albums out that year as well. In addition to The Game, they did the Flash Gordon soundtrack. So yeah, God. And of course all these ones, release date unknown. Such a cool year. And I'm going to quickly look at their middle listing in case there's anything on the heavier side of things that I've forgot. Oh, this album. This is fantastic. there's two versions of this. I have both. On vinyl I have the English language version with lyrics translated by Jimmy Percy of Sham 69, but I also have the French version on CD. Definitely listen to the French version. There's extra stuff in there. There's I think one of the tracks, there's quite a big difference to the mix, and the lyrics sound much more aggressive in their original French. Yeah, they were well before their time. Like at the time, like a political, hard rock metal band was pretty much unheard of. So that was pretty groundbreaking, and yeah, when I heard that's just blew my mind. Just the lyrical content compared to what I'd been listening to. So a quick look down here. They blew us we're up to Cultosaurus erectus. We had Power Supply by G. Def Leppard's On Through the Night. Ethel the Frog. Oh, Gillen was Up to Glory Road. I don't think I mentioned British Steel. Kiss Unmasked. Oh, this album, Metal Rendezvous, again, didn't make the list. Wasn't a debut album. They're up to their fourth album by this. I did buy it when it came out. It's one of my early vinyl purchases. Molly Hatchet always had such cool album covers that didn't really fit in with their sound. I mean, I liked the sound of the band, but they were a southern rock band. But they had these like sword and sorcery album covers. This is an interesting album, this one here, the G-Force album. So Gary Moore had a number of solo albums out. But he did this album called G-Force, which I think was a little bit more of an attempt at a band lineup, and that had was it the track Rockin' and Rollin' on it. Of course, Motorhead had Ace of Spades out, but they were on by that time on their fourth album, Scream Dream by Ted Nugent, Crimes of Passion. It's an excellent album. I mean, I've lost track a bit of what Pat Benatar's putting out, but yeah, the early Pat Benatar albums are just amazing. There's a really good live concert I watched one time. She had an excellent band backing her. Rods. Oh, of course, Head On by Samson. They're on their second album. So we're a couple of bands that are sort of lumped in with or included with the sort of Nwubum umbrella, the new wave of British heavy metal, but they'd sort of pre-existed and been running for quite a while before that really took off. So you could argue that's the case with Saxon, Samson, certainly Motorhead, Priest. Priest were going since the early 70s. And Scorpions had been going for a while, though they're not British band, as was the case I think with I don't know if I've highlighted this before. So one of the things with punk at the time is in early punk there wasn't a lot of singles out, so people were listening to other stuff, and people sort of gravitated towards reggae for various reasons. So a lot of people that were into punk also into reggae and dub. I found a similar thing happen with Nwubum, is because at the time there wasn't a lot of singles out, in that period, sort of early 79. People would just, if they were sort of new into that and were looking for stuff to listen to, then other bands they listened to were like a lot of the European sort of, pre that period, so bands like Scorpions, Crocus, and then a lot of, southern rock bands, or bands like Riot, that sort of things, or maybe like rock bands like Thin Lizzy and UFO. So a lot of bands that were a bit established that weren't necessarily in that Nwubum area did pretty well off the back of it. You remember this band, Triumph Canada? Again, they've been kicking around for a while. They're on their fourth album by the time got around to 1980. Oh, this band, Vardis. So this was their debut album, I believe, was a live album. Van Halen were up to Women and Children first. They were on their third album. We had Live in the Heart of the City, Wild Horses, which was a debut album by Wild Horses, had Brian Robertson on it, I believe. Yeah, because he'd left Thin Lizzy by then or been booted out. Was it Jimmy Bain as well, was the bass player, I believe, ex-Rainbow. Just Testing, I mentioned. Witch Find, Give 'Em Hell, his debut album. Yes. I think the album cover belies the music. I don't think it's, they were lumped in with heavy metal, but from what I remember, it's by today's standard, it may well be considered to be more like hard rock. Interesting. Yeah, I'm going to have to re-listen to this because I just have memories of when I listened to this, it not being particularly heavy at the time, but I could be wrong. And that's someone that's familiar with the band might correct me in the comments section. Yeah. So cool. Okay, so there we have it. That was ostensibly my top 5 1980 debut albums, but we went off on lots of different rabbit holes. Primarily it was just to make sure, I think, that my voice could hold up over recording a video. It sounds like it is. So hopefully, unless something else happens, next week you should be able to look forward to a return to the usual schedule. So thanks for watching. Bye for now. And I will definitely catch you in the next video.